Okay, how is everybody doing today? If you could do me a favor, please, and in the chat box, uh, regardless of where you're watching me on Zoom or YouTube, if you could just let me know that you can hear me, that would be great. And what would be even greater is to tell me where you're listening from. That would be fantastic too. So, anyways, with that, welcome. It's a little impromptu today. So, I am here to answer your questions, whatever they are, on whatever startup questions you have. Uh, so I'm here to answer them. So pop them into the old chat box, and I will be happy to answer whatever's on your mind. So with that, let's get started. Let's see if we've got any questions to start with. And I think I just learned something today about YouTube, so I will learn about that going forward. So, anyways, just check my questions that we've got. Handy dandy questions. All right, let's see what we have. Okay. So let's see what we've got for questions. What should I ask for in my pre-seed when? Okay, and then there's more to it. Okay, when I am an only founder and I have no team, I have no money except for a few months rent saved up, and I also have no job. Okay, this is not sounding good. My plan is to produce a video game and phone app of a sport that I created. And while that is being built, I will start a new real life sports league based on the sport I create, which will compete with a current major sport. This is just insanity. Okay. If successful, it will become a major billion-dollar venture, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'm not going to read the rest of it. Anyways, if you're starting something and you're looking for money and you don't have a product yet, you just started and you're just going to go out and raise on the basis of a pitch and a pitch deck, it's been done, but it's virtually impossible. There are exceptions to this. I'll tell you what the exceptions are. The exception really is that you and your team have to have a track record of success, or that you're of such stature that people will invest based on who you are. That's it. If you're somebody like this fellow who doesn't have anything, right? It doesn't mean he's a bad person, doesn't mean he doesn't have a great idea. Nobody's going to invest in it just based on, hey, I'm doing this, I don't have a job, I don't have any money, please give me money because you're supposed to give me money. That's not how this works. So it will not work that way for this person. I feel bad for him and what he's trying to do, but it will not work. So look, sometimes you have to be the truth teller. You have to tell people what's real and what isn't real. And that's my job, was to be the truth teller here and say, hey, this is reality. This is what it is. This is what we can do. And I'm sorry. So I'd much rather do that and be honest than just lie to somebody and say, oh yeah, no problem, you'll be able to do this. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, let's go to our next question. This is from our Zoom audience, which is our Zero to Pitch audience, our free audience. If you're a member of that group, you get priority on my Ask Me Anything versus the YouTube audience. And here's the question that we have. Do you not include in the PD pitch deck? Okay, that's what that is. The amount you are asking for. Of course you do. Of course you do. Now, this gets to a more interesting question, which is the quote unquote ask slide. But let's ignore that question for a minute because the reality is, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here for a second, but the reality is that your ask slide, I have a different belief on ask slides than most. There's the classic ask slide is, here's my ask. I'm asking for X millions of dollars, and here's the use of funds. And people show the silly ass pie chart, saying, okay, I'm going to use 20% for R&D, 33% for marketing, and blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. It's just a waste. Instead, I mean, if you really want to set yourself apart, you really want to do something valuable for investors and make it easier for them to understand your business, which is the goal, then do this instead. Put together a chart, a financial chart of what's going on with your business. Very simple income statement with a few extras on there. So we would show our revenue, we would show our expenses, we would show our cash level, which is an extra because it's not on a typical income statement. We'd show cash from investment, which shows what we're going to get from investment, and we'd show profit or loss at the end of the year. So we kind of give an idea and percentage margins. So that would give people a pretty nice idea what's going on with your business. It's kind of a summation of your financials, and it gives investors a thumbnail sketch of what's going on much better than the typical ask statement in a pitch deck. Let's go to our next question. Also from our Zoom audience. Very good. I'm currently in discussions regarding a potential merger with another business owner who approached me with the idea. We're aligned in vision and strategy, and while no agreements have been signed yet, the current structure being discussed is a cashless merger, okay? As the owner of my company, is it typical or fair to merge under these terms without receiving any compensation or equity considerations? Okay, well, what do I need to consider here? First-time founder, thank you for your insights. Okay, well, if I'm going to go merge with somebody, the question is why? It's the classic thing. I mean, this is the what's in it for me. So there has to be something you get in return for merging with somebody else's business. And I think the idea is if you're merging and the other side is the acquirer, he or she is the acquirer, then what are they giving you in return? Cashless to me indicates that they're going to give you equity of some sort in return. That's kind of what it means. Then, okay, there's another line here. There's an equity consideration. Okay. Actually, 49% would be my half. I think it would be a big payoff for us to join forces. Sorry, misspoke. Okay. So you're going to get equity in return. So here's the challenge. And this is what you have to think about, because even at 49%, the other person is going to have 51%, presumably. So they would have the controlling interest, which is fine if that's what you want. But you have to think about, which is always true when you're merging with another company, if it's a private company, which I'm assuming this company is, you always have to think about what's the liquidation event? How are you going to be able to get a return on your equity? What is the mechanism? What is the vehicle for this? How is this going to work? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. How is it going to work? So, and you have to believe then the second piece of this is, okay, let's say that because typically there's one of two ways companies get liquid, right? Is they get bought, like in your particular case, or they IPO. That's the two typical ways that most companies achieve a liquidation event, with the primary one being they get bought. So you get bought. Now you have to say, well, is it realistic that there's buyers for this company, whatever the company is doing? And you have to be really intellectually honest with yourself. That's the second thing. Do I really believe that there's going to be buyers for what we're doing and somebody's going to buy the business? Then the third piece of this is, do you believe in the new CEO of this merged company, which is not you? It's going to be somebody else. Do you believe in this person? Do they have integrity? Are they smart? Are they fanatical about what they're doing? Do you mesh culturally in the way that you see running a company? All these things are critical. So anyways, hopefully I've given you some stuff to think about. Okay, more from our Zoom audience, which is our Zero to Pitch audience, which is our free group of startup CEOs. The to my left, on my left side, right over here, right. Let's see if I can point. Yeah, to my that QR code is for Zero to Pitch Gold. That is our paid group of startup CEOs. If you really want to go faster and work with a really serious group of startup CEOs who are raising money for their businesses and growing their businesses, that's the place to be. Scan the QR code, all of $150 a month to be part of that group. An incredible deal for what you get. And you can go there and you can learn more and you can kind of see more. There's a video you can watch about what it's like to be inside of the group. There's testimonials, all those types of things. Okay, so anyways, let's go to the next question. Is it better to license the IP to a startup than to have the startup hold the IP? Okay, well, if it's your company, and this is an interesting question because there are people, and I know the people. In fact, there's one person inside of the paid group who would argue, "Hey, I'm licensing it." The problem with that is you put friction in the deal by doing it. I understand the logic of why you want to license it because then you hold on to it just in case something bad happens. The problem is it's an asset for the company. So if you're starting the company and you want to get funded and you want to raise money, you got to be all in. And if you're putting impediments in the way between yourself and the company's success and the company getting funded, it gets harder. So to me, the startup should hold the IP ideally. It's the better answer. Okay, next question. What slide do we use to show the ask amount? It's your financial slide. Instead of an ask slide, make your financial slide the ask slide because on there is a row that says cash from investment or something like that. That row is your ask. And then the financials show essentially how the money works in your company. And by the way, if you're wondering, well, how do investors know what I'm doing with the money that I'm asking for? Well, think about it. You've just gone through a pitch deck showing how your company works, going through what your company is going to do and what you do if you get funded. That's your ask is the whole deck. You don't need an ask slide. I hope that helps. All right, let's go to our next question. Hey, Brett, I started a limited cooperative association, LCA. I need some help with the offering documents for my Series A. It's a cooperative model that allows for fundraising. I have some potential investors, but the current lawyers are asking ridiculous amounts. I'm sorry to hear that. You need lawyers to help you draft documents of what this of what's going on. I'm a little confused about why they're offering documents for your Series A. Typically, and maybe this has to do with the limited cooperative association piece of this and the way that the company is set up. But I would imagine whatever the way the company is set up, because most companies are pretty boilerplate in how they're set up. So there really probably shouldn't be much difference there. I'm not familiar with this particular one, but I'm just going to assume, for whatever it's worth, that it's fairly straightforward how to do this. So from a lawyer perspective, it should just be, well, I just pull it out of my file. I've got the right information to set up the LCA if that's what the issue is. If the issue is on the fundraising side, typically the way that goes is that the investor is going to give you a term sheet which says the terms of the closing of getting the money, and then based on that term sheet, which is a non-binding document, then the closing documents are put together, and those cost a reasonable amount of money, to put together. Even for an early stage startup, you may spend $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, to close. Depending upon what you're doing and how complex it is. So sorry I couldn't give you a direct answer to that, but that's kind of the way that it is. Hello, Brett. How shall I connect with you? Well, you can go, there are a couple different ways you can connect with me. You can go to my website, brettjfox.com, and start signing up for stuff there. That's one way. Second way is you can go to my free group of startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch, and sign up there. There's a link. There is a link on the YouTube page for that you can find. That's the second way. And the third way is you can become part of my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold. You can see the QR code for that over my left shoulder. Sign up there, and those are multiple ways to communicate with me and connect with me. Let's see our next question. I received an unsolicited acquisition offer for my startup from big tech. And at the same time, I got a lead investor for my pre-seed at $16 million valuation. Would you disclose the offer to the investor? No, I don't think so. Because if you think about it, if you're going to take the offer, you don't need the investor. So to you, it's kind of a risk thing. I don't know what the offer is, but let's assume that it's for more than the 16 million. Let's say it's for 20 or 30 million or whatever. You have to decide, okay, do I want to take the bird in hand versus the two in the bush? Do I want to take the offer, go with what it is, go with the offer, take it, go with it? Do I want to do that versus, do I just hold with this, and go with the investor? If you have a lead investor, that's great. Can you close the round? So it's really, you have to decide, which path you want to go on. Do I want to keep pursuing the big win, or do I want to just take the money? That's the question. By the way, congratulations on getting the offer. That's pretty cool. Okay. I am planning to raise funds for my startup. It's generating revenue, and I want to know more about it. Fundraising. That's why I want to connect with you. We are an ARR of 360K as an education technical company. At what valuation should I raise? That's too broad of a question for me to be able to answer here today. I don't know how much money you're raising, which is one piece of it. I have a video on this that you can find, which kind of goes through this. But let me caution you about, depending upon how much money you're raising and who you're raising it from, just because you want to raise money at a certain valuation does not mean that people are going to give you money at that valuation. This is the basic construct of raising money. The market sets the valuation. It's just like the stock market, right? They're buyers and sellers. The seller is you. The buyers are investors. There has to be an agreement between the buyer and the seller. I always believe it is better for you when you're in your position, unless there's one caveat to this that I'll put, for you to tell the buyers, we'll let the market set the price. The market is buyers. It does not mean you have to agree to their price. It does mean let them make the first offer rather than you trying to play a game that you're not expert at. You're much better off this way. The caveat to this is if you're raising from a bunch of investors all at once and they're angels, and let's say you're raising a very small amount of money, but maybe at 360K, it's a larger amount. Maybe you're raising, but let's say you're raising from a group of 10 angel investors or something like that. Or you think there are going to be 10 investors in your syndicate. And maybe you're raising $1 million. Everybody's going to write $100,000 checks on average. Maybe then you would set a valuation. And typically at that stage, $1 million, probably going to give up 20% of your company, I would bet, 20, 25%, just a hunch. Could be anywhere from 15 to 25%, somewhere in that range. So you decide and you say, okay, let's say it's 20% just for the sake of this discussion. We're going to have a $4 million pre-money valuation. $1 million gets added, $5 million post, which gets you to the 20% that you would give up. So that might be a way to do it. If you want to learn how to do this well and you really want to help with your fundraising and your pitch deck and everything else, join Zero to Pitch Gold. All of $150 a month. You can quit anytime you want. 14-day money back guarantee. It's a great deal. And I have office hours literally every day. I have office hours an hour and a half from now. So if you join now, you could participate in office hours in an hour and a half. and literally have office hours every day for about an hour or so. And we go through these types of questions, help people with their pitches and pitch decks. You name it, we do it. All right, let's go to our next question. And we're facing difficulty raising the funds. This is from the previous person asking how help. Okay, well, that's how you get help. That's what I would do. Okay. Okay. Any opinions? Funding from decentralized funding sources. I don't know what that means. Kind of makes VCs irrelevant for mid six figures or low seven figures. I don't know what decentralized funding sources means, unless that means angel investors or something. So maybe the broader question, and maybe a broader question I can answer for the audience as well. Who should be my investors? Well, first principles. Number one, not all investors are made equal. Not everybody's the same. So let me give you some examples. By market type, in other words, if you are doing, like we had one person doing educational tech today already. Let's say we got another person doing a technology startup, third person maybe doing medical devices. There are different investor groups for all of these. And typically the educational tech investor is not going to invest in medical devices. You got to find that group that invests in your type of company. Second thing you need to find, people that invest at your stage. So if you're early stage, which is probably most of the people on today's webinar, so to speak, or Ask Me Anything session, or early stage, you got to find people that invest early stage. That's the second piece. The third piece is you got to find people that are geographically going to invest in your company. So if I'm in California and I'm expecting somebody in Africa to go invest in my company, I'm looking for investors in Africa and based in California, probably not going to work too well, and vice versa. So you have to find people that invest where you are as well. So those are the three things that we need. So if there is quote unquote decentralized funding and those are the right people that invest at your stage of company, then great, go for it. VCs typically in today's world don't invest, in these very early stage companies. There are exceptions to this, but for the most part, they typically invest a little bit later, after there's traction, after there's revenue. Again, there are exceptions, it happens, but most of these investments are covered in today's world, depending upon the stage, either by friends, family, and ourselves. That's usually the first investors in a business. Second investors would be angel investors. Then the third group of investors is VCs when we get there. All right, I hope that helps. Crypto, oh my goodness. All right, I'm just shaking my head. If the idea is to raise from crypto, I don't know. I mean, good luck to you. It is my best answer to you. Good luck. It doesn't sound too smart. I don't think that's gonna work too well. Sorry. So I'm just being honest. I wouldn't personally do that. I wouldn't try and raise crypto funds and think that that's going to work out too well for me. Sounds scammy. All right, let's go to our next question. In your office hours, in the paid school group, would you be willing to discuss / teach me about liquidation and distribution? Absolutely. Could we also work on negotiation support as best I can? Absolutely. I need help doing due diligence. I'm a small business owner, first-time founder, 5 years into this game, and I could use the help. Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff we would be able to cover in our office hours. So in office hours, it is fair game to talk about anything. We have people all over a spectrum of things. It's not just technology. It's everything from medical to tech to software, to hardware, to you name it, to smaller businesses. We had somebody building a restaurant at one point in the group. So it's all over. So it's whatever you want to do. We talk about how to build businesses essentially and how to raise money for the businesses, depending upon what's going on. There's a lot we can learn from everybody. That's kind of the idea. And that's what we do. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Does your company have association to investment groups in the USA? In other words, are you asking me, will I introduce you to investors? The answer is no. Just to be really black and white, if your expectation is that you expect me to introduce you to investors, that can happen, but the odds are it probably will not happen. To the previous question that was being asked regarding where do I find money for my startup? Not all investors are created equally. They're different. And because they're different, they may be people I don't know. I have a certain network of investors that I know, and many I don't. So the odds are probably with what you're doing, I don't. And I don't want to mislead you. So anyways, that's the answer to your question. Okay, let's go on to our next question. Can you give a clear, we'll see what the answer is depending upon what the question is here. Can you give a clear and simple explanation of the standard fundraising process, please? And thank you. Oh, man. No. No, because I can give you the basic idea, but fundraising, there's so many different pieces to this puzzle. The basic idea is this. When we're raising money, maybe this is the answer, since maybe I can get off of being flippant about it. Because I'm just thinking about the extreme of the challenges of raising money. But let me try. So the basic idea when we're raising money is we have to put together a pitch and a pitch deck, right? We got to have a way to present our story to customers, right? What's our business plan, which is represented by the pitch and the pitch deck. The pitch is you presenting. The pitch deck is the visuals of what you're presenting. So we've got to do that piece. Then the second piece of this, obviously, is we have to know how much money we're going to raise, okay, and why we need to raise it. So we've got to have that piece figured out. Then the third piece is we have to find a way to contact investors. 1, 2, 3. We've got to be able to do those three things. So we have to have kind of a plan and a strategy for doing those three things. That's what we want to do. So you got to go develop your pitch, go develop your pitch deck, got to do those, you got to rehearse, you got to do all the work for that. Got to know how much money we're going to raise and why. Have to plan to support it, all those things. And we've got to find a way to meet investors that are relevant. Again, not all investors are created equal. So we've got to get to the right group of investors here, to make this fly. Those are our goals. So the last piece, which a lot of people get hung up on, and I have a free training on this, which you can find online as well. But the basic concept here, when we think about how are we going to find investors, the ideal place is obviously through our network of people that we know. And I would get in the habit of asking everybody that I know, can you help me? Do you know anybody who might be interested in investing? And you start meeting people and you start building out your network that way. The second thing that we can do is we can start using tools like Crunchbase, for example, and build up a list of potential investors. And then from that, we can go figure out, okay, how are we going to get to these investors? And I would use LinkedIn to go figure that out. Maybe you know somebody who can introduce you to somebody. And that's another way to go make this work. The third thing we can do, if we don't know anybody and we know the right names, and there are tools for this, is we do the cold email. And we write a nice cold email. Cold emails work, by the way. So there's always a way. And we get in touch with investors that way. Okay, next question. Is your paid school group office hours at 6 p.m. Eastern? Well, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, it is at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, US, by the way. So that translates to 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 o'clock in the UK, midnight in Central Europe, 1 a.m. if we're in the Middle East, and so forth and so on around the globe. So Wednesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Actually, not 8 a.m. I'm sorry, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So, and then Friday is noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and you can translate all those times into the time zone that you're in. The idea is we have people all over the world in our group, and I want to be able to make sure that everybody gets a chance to participate in office hours and work with me. So that's why they're different times. So if you can think about it logically, Monday and Tuesday, North America, Africa, Europe, Middle East. Wednesdays, Thursdays would typically be North America again, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. That's the idea. And Friday back to North America, Africa, Europe, and Middle East would be the idea. So anyways, that hopefully will tell you kind of how we work. And I'm trying to help everybody. Everybody's got different schedules and everything. So you have that tool, by the way, available to you. There are courses inside of Zero to Pitch Gold as well. So if you're in Zero to Pitch and you went through my onboarding, you've already kind of seen a little bit about what's inside of Zero to Pitch Gold, but there are more courses, more detailed courses inside of there as well. And there's the community section where you can ask and answer questions. So all these things you have available to you to be able to help you in terms of your business and what you're trying to do. Okay. Do we have any other question? Any other questions today? Happy to answer them. Let me go back to my question bank really quickly. Let's see what we got. Okay. How do you divide equity amongst your co-founders? Let's see if there's more detail here. With my team, we are now at this stage, so I'm looking for the fairest and most generous scheme. Okay, this is good. To divide the equity so that everyone is happy and that the startup benefits from it. Luckily, I have a good feeling that in our team, it won't be much of a problem. We are quite united and like-minded. Okay, well, this is kind of the first rule of dividing up equity is at the end of the day, you and your co-founders have to believe that the deal is fair for everybody. You can't, as the CEO, just dictate. Well, you can, and you can try and shove it down everybody's throats, but probably it's not going to work too well. So I wouldn't recommend doing it. So ideally, it should be relatively straightforward how you divide it up, and everybody should feel good at the end of the day. So I'm not in favor of, there's this methodology called slicing pie that some people have out there. And the idea is, well, depending upon tasks and everything else, we'll divide it up that way. And that's very arbitrary, very confusing, and seems to me to be fraught with issues. So the better way is just to decide. So let's say it's just you and one other co-founder. It can't be 99 for you and 1 for me. That's not going to work. It has to be somewhat reasonable, pretty close. I don't know whether it should be 50-50. 50-50 deals kind of have problems with them, but it can be as high as 51-49. It could be 60-40, maybe 2/3, 1/3. But when we start getting beyond those percentages, the bigger the gap, probably the more fraught with problems it's going to be. And I'd much rather own 60% of something than 99% of nothing, which goes to the idea of being generous, which this person put in their question. So let's go on the generous side of things. Let's be generous. That's going to help us get a deal done with our team. So, you can kind of say, this is kind of what I'm thinking. What were you thinking? And look, at any classic negotiation, you always want the other side to go first, but you can always ask, you can always do it and say, well, what were you thinking would be fair? And you want to go into it with an open mind, with a generous and big heart, just like this person said. And again, I don't think you want to get into this classic negotiation thing, but just understand it has to be reasonable for both sides. If there are three of you, it's got to be reasonable for all three of you. The more people there are, the harder this becomes. I had four co-founders besides myself. And yet every conversation I had with my co-founders about how we were dividing up the equity took maybe 5 minutes max. That was it. We were like-minded. It worked really easily. Everybody was in sync in terms of what they were going to get and felt good about it. And it was very easy. Now, one other piece of this puzzle. Equity needs to vest. There's too much risk. Founders many times don't work out. Maybe at least 50% of the time they don't work out. So we want to make sure that we're covered just in case things don't work the way that we want them to. So be careful, have a vesting schedule for your stock that you're giving people. And typically the typical vesting schedule is a 4-year vest. In other words, it's going to vest over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. In other words, for that first year, nothing vests until month 12 when a quarter of the stock vests. Then after that, typically you would vest monthly or quarterly, depending upon what you're doing. Don't overcomplicate this. Don't try and come up with something new. But typically by the end of a year, you'll know whether a founder works out or not. And if they don't work out, that's cool. That's why you have the cliff. You move on from them, and it's kind of like no harm, no foul. Everybody moves on, and that's just the way life goes. So hopefully that works. Let's go to our next question. I thought cold soliciting under exemption D for 506B wasn't legal. Okay, I'm going to feign a little bit of ignorance here. I don't know what exemption D for 506B is in this particular case. But if we are just reaching out to people with a cold email saying, hey, we're raising money for our startup and it does this, this, and this, that is perfectly legal to do. I'm not familiar with how that would be illegal. People have been doing that from the end of time, just reaching out and saying, hey, I've got something, we're raising money. It's no different, if you think about it, than somebody going to an investor on your behalf and saying, hey, there's Bobby, and I know Bobby, and Bobby has this great startup, and you should meet her. It's no different. It's just you went and you're Bobby, and you went instead. It's the same thing. I don't think it's illegal. I've never heard of it being illegal, but I have to be honest. I don't know exemption D of 506B like you're suggesting, so I don't know that exemption, so I can't answer that specifically. So maybe I'll look that up if I remember after we're done today. So anyways, if there are more questions, put them in the chat box in either Zoom or YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, happy to answer your questions either way. So let's see, from our Zoom audience, which is our free audience of Zero to Pitch people who are representing quite well today. And here's our question. As we raise capital, and 40% comes in earlier, can the company use the 40% before the fundraise? If somebody gives you the money and the terms are, and the investor is okay with it, you see this, I think I know what you're getting at, because you see this happen a lot with very early rounds of fundraising. Typically for venture-based rounds, the round has to close, whatever the amount is that you're going to close at, and then you get the money. Sometimes they'll bridge you and you'll get some of the money early as a bridge loan, and then you'll take in the rest and it'll count towards the round. But let's say that this is an earlier round, which by the way you're describing it sounds like, and let's say you're raising $1 million and somebody's written you, or maybe two people have written you a $400,000 check combined, and they're ready to give you the check, and they're saying, okay, it's okay to use the money, then sure, it's a matter of what you and your investors agree to. And if they're okay with a partial close and saying you're going to go on and keep raising money, which you see a lot with these types of rounds, this perpetual fundraising mode that people get into, and your investors are okay with it, then yeah, great, go ahead. But remember, all you got is the 400K. So you got to operate as if all I've got is $400,000. So therefore, I've got to be really careful with my money. I can't run the company as if I'm going to raise the other 600 because that may not happen. So I would be really cautious with how I raise my money. I hope that helps. Okay. This is a comment, really not a question, but I appreciate the comment nonetheless. Thank you for this process, which is a real training experience for us. You are welcome. Glad to help. So let's see if we've got any other questions for me in either the chat box on Zoom, which is my free audience of zero to pitch people. And I'll be happy to answer any questions they have. They get the priority because they're already members of the group. And my YouTube audience, happy to answer your questions as well. So if you got any questions for me, let's pop them in there. If not, we've been at it for close to 45 minutes now. So then we'll call it a day, so to speak. I'll see if I have any other questions in my question bank. You've been really helpful. I look forward to joining your community. Thanks. I look forward to having you in the community. Let's see if we got any more in the old question bank here. Okay, it does not look like it. Okay. All right. I think we're done for today, unless somebody pops in super quick. I'll give you guys just a little bit more time. If you're based here in the United States, then I hope you're going to have a really nice 4th of July holiday in a couple days. And enjoy yourself, have fun, be safe, and all those types of things. And if you're outside the U.S., have a nice time too. It's summer for at least in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the summer, the southern hemisphere, what is it, the height of winter or whatever? So, anyways, thanks so much. Happy to answer any other questions. And doesn't look like there are any, so we'll call it a day from here. Thanks a lot, everybody. Until next time, take care. Bye.